One is the pristine cognitions of the what is vast in nature. That, yes? And that arises from the observation of the perceivably how things are, we already studied, and the cleaning misperceptions of object beyond the imagination, bring the result of wisdom that knows all there is, and all there is. For example, you can to say how things are, manyness, and the wisdom that knows all there is, maybe it's the suchness. Suchness? Things are, or you can to say how all those is. Maybe is like kind of the what it is. Like according to the Tibetan, Jinyit is the manyness, okay? It is like the English, you can to say the is, I'm just concerning, it is like more plural. Suchness is like normally you cannot to say the are. And the manyness, these things are, you can to say. And that perspective maybe is how all there is. In Tibet is Jinyin Chenpa Dichen, is the result of the manyness wisdom of true result, these wisdoms. The wisdom that is the wisdom of the manyness, okay? That is the received from clean misperception of object beyond the imagination, and result through the pristine cognition of the vast natures. And this is like a kind of they arise from the observation of the precisely how things are, and then is the consequent result is the knowledge of the manyness, which is the omniscient wisdoms, you can to say. You can use like a convention. Jinyin Chenpa is not conventional. It's a conventional analysis, but it's Jinyin Chenpa. It's a how do you say? It's like a generally you can to say it's like the ultimate result. But in the relatively, you can to tricky way to say yes, it's like the understanding, like a kind of the maybe. I'm not sure. This is like a Jinyin Chenpa, like to have the knowledge of the manyness. Of course, you have that moment. You surely, when you have the wisdom of the manyness, there is automatically to be the wisdom of the suchness. That goes to. And do you have these true knowledges, the wisdoms, then it's the enlightened, it's Buddha's perspective. And through this analysis, and you can go to the ultimate level. Yes, and? Say something? Not to be enlightened, but as you, for example, same as in the follow the sequential of the explanations. Sometimes also like you necessary to use the ultimate things in the conventionals. Same as the Abhisamaya Lonkara, why you need to begin to talking about the omniscient wisdom. At that moment, it is not, but some in the perspective here is like, you analysis through like this, your pristine cognize direct to see that those are to the preservation of these all the things are really to direct, and through this the wisdoms or through these analysisms, and like to dispel of the clean, to clean that, or it's eliminated all the misperceptions. Then what is the result? Result is the wisdom of the manyness. And we, what do you have? Okay, good. Okay, now, no, we nothing. And okay, now we can go, okay? Now, verse 55, yes? Okay. And I don't need to mention you because you are already the Sangha of the ayers, nobles. And why you become the nobles? Because of your attitude. And I hope your attitudes and the name of yours is corresponding very well. And that perspective, I think, is I don't need to mention about the beneficial attitude and the source and the cause of the happiness. And but it's aware of the expression of the enlightened teachings. Then is the need to remind the bodhicitta and to say this, please to generate bodhicitta and the mind of the enlightenment. With that, we are studying this Mipham Rinpoche's text, the sort of the wisdoms, and to analyze like things are for like not differentiation of our own body, verb, minds. That is we call the relative truth. And this relative truth, and it's easily to see, easily to communicate, easily kind of touch, easily to perceive, direct our own individual faculties and the mental faculties and the self-awareness. And then it's like, and the relative things are like relative, all the times relative. Relative things all the times like this. Of course, there's not. And then it's like a kind of the, on the relative truth, we divided substance relative things, and also it is the impure relative things. And this is the obviously we can to see the direct our own cognitives. Like a substance relative things, like our body, verb, mental, and outer appearances, inner appearances, and very much touchable and hearable, eatable, and things are. And those are in the relatively is substance. And it is not emptiness. It is saying it is like a rainbow and hallucination, like dreams. But it is like for the beginner perspective, ordinary perspective, it is like a kind of substance, and also substantially looks like existence. And then it's like precisely, determinedly using our valid cognizer. Valid, that means it's like a good mind, like intelligent mind, and like a kind of really to sensible, or it is like how do you say, determined mind is really to check, not a kind of doing like this, looks like kind of drunk or drug addict, not like this. Seriously to check the relative things, the substance are. There is naturally occurring the impute is things. When we see that, like we are all the time talking about computer, in Tibet, Buddhists so-called, they're talking about vase and pillars. But vase, we can talk about computers. And look at the computers, and then it's like, yes, it's substantially or the substantially, this is here. I can touch, I can see, I can use it, and I need to presume, and because some in the perspective, a lot of positive, beneficial. Of course, I need to avoid some in the perspective, there are dangerous also things. Maybe it's like electricity and some in the materials, you cannot eat, you cannot very carefully. And this, and then it's like impute, means it is momentary. Obviously to see, it is momentary. And also it is impermanent. Absolutely it is can to see. Those things are, we cannot to see. But we can't to see, we cannot to say not existence. It obviously, directly, we can to presume these imputations, imputed like a kind of the relative things. And then it's like, yeah, this computer is the substance, but on that there is impute. It's like kind of cannot to see, cannot hear, cannot touch it. But on the computer there's the impermanent of the computers, momentary nature of the computers, and it is not a kind of the single atoms. It is like very much compounded, and also it is contaminated, not is incontaminated, each moment exhausted. And also from that, here is like contaminate things, a lot of things is coming out. And therefore, it is like something is impute. That is to see this science, these signals, and then we can to say it's the true nature. Then it's to go to more deeply, what is like a kind of we call the valid, the invalid or the invalid cognitions. Invalid, the nature, invalid, the valid things under these computers, and how it has the nature, how it is this kind of the momentaries, how it is the emptiness of these computers. And then I need to analyze. Of course, we say it's like more and more searching, going to like this, and then this is dissolved into the own identity of the natural space. Or natural space, this is the true nature of the computers. Then is the computer is not this one, this is not computers. Finally, there is like kind of the exhaustion of the into the. But then it's like how it can to appear, to arise, and this one said, there's no nihilistic way, say. Yesterday to say everything is appeared from their own identity, say. This momentary nature, momentarily to arise as computers. This is like each moment computer exhausted, but each moment there are the like kind of appearing computers. And that one is like appearing from the itself, but and not caused to the others. Because computer is like each moment is like not appeared from itself, and it need to appear from other conditions. And then it's like impossible. Computer each moment is changed. All that we lost our files, our programmers, shape and colors, it's lost, disappeared. But not. its own identity, on each one in the computers, each moment there is. It doesn't matter each particle or it's the group of in the computers. You have the pile of the atoms, particles. Then it's like the group of each moment is a changing process. Each particles and the arise, each individual like kind of, for example, in the computer, there's black part, blue part, green part. It has each individual this inside this the particles, colors, then produced like the changing process comes from each individual this the like identities, not a kind of commonly or something like this. The commonly of the computers, there's like we normally kind of the called the common collections of the karmas, the not uncommon karmas, individuals. For example, it's also in the computer exactly that. Commonly, there's united of the computers. There is like appeared, and is the abiding, and then there is the kind of the destination. How do you say? Disintegrate and disappearing things. But individual, maybe one day it's like the blue class disappeared, and one day maybe it's like a kind of the upper of this of computers broken, finished. But in the base it is not finished. But it's like there is an individual, you have the kind of the how do you say is the not kind of continue to like this. But it is like there is what is the continuations arise the own identities, that is the most important. And then this is things are like this. We can to compare in the relatively in our minds. For ours is like for perspective, things okay, yes, like this, and things are disappeared. There's not really continue. This is the materials, and for our own the mind as a perspective, mind we are talking about past, mind is talking about present, mind is talking about futures. And then is mind is in the relatively, mind comes from the past, be in the present, and mind is going to in the futures. But mind, wherever mind be, it doesn't matter, and the past or the present and the futures. Mind is the arising, it comes from the itself. And that this, where is the come from? The own identity, own is like kind of the natural space. And that is like, and there's many examples. Maybe I'm crazy, but some says like the wave. Wave comes from the ocean. The wave is not different than the ocean. Ocean is not different than the wave. Wave comes from the ocean. Wave is abiding in the ocean. Wave is dissolved into the ocean. Exactly this movement of the arising, the appearances, raising things, comes from the own identity of the natural space, abiding there, dissolves into theirs. And this, and that is like a kind of the realities. That is like in the relatively, we can to see this inconceivable, like continuation of the arise. And also there is nothing substantially existence. Also it is like, it is the beyond the imaginations. This is we can to say is the inconceivable, it is unexpressible, it is like this. And then through this seriously to analyze the relative things, and then is we can to approach, impute. I want to say that what I'm saying is impute, and is unlike the kind of touchable, unseeable, or unlike kind of the very much indirect, the valid things. That is the true nature of the realities. But true nature of the realities, very indirect, very hidden. It is difficult, but there is. We can do this through the science of signal of the relative truths. Through the relative truths, we can to image, we can to think, we are not omniscient, we are not yet direct experience the absolute truth. But, and through this science, there is the absolute truth, and therefore we are applying to the path, therefore we are practicing, therefore we are studying. And today it is therefore, as I think is in this Rinpoche's text, particularly first time we are analyzing the relative truth, and then is of course in the absolute truth. This true truth, the resume of the Buddha's teaching. True truths are all the knowledge is resuming. And if we understood the true truth, we understand that all things are how it is. And therefore, now it is like it's talking about the verse 48. If there's no valid cognitions, then it's like there's something good things, impossible things. And it goes like this. It is because the mind, both with the concept and without, is sometimes diluted as when perceiving true moons, dream or the believing a rope is a snake, and sometimes not. That we have the categories of the valid and invalid cognitions. And of course, it is like we talking about that this is maybe in the relative perspective. It is like the categorization of the valid, invalid. The invalid cognitions, maybe it is like ordinary cognitions, and they can perceive dilutedly, like sometimes like true moons, or it is like a kind of the ropes perceived as the snakes, and also it is like to perceive the conch as the yellows, and also perceive the relative things as the permanent, as the like kind of substantially existence. And that is also is like invalid, like kind of cognizers. Valid cognizers, to see that this is the opposites. It is like a kind of the perceiving, like a kind of the direct. Here is the yogis, we can to say the perspective, Bodhisattva's perspective. It is very much valid, the cognizers. Here is like a kind of talking about the true mind. Because of the mind, it has the true, both. Like conceptual mind. Conceptual mind is the ordinaries, perceiving the true moon sometimes. And sometimes it's like a conch as yellow. And it's like a kind of relative things perceived as the truth, substantial existence, permanent, and like forever they think. And this kind of, and without a concept, we can to say is the yogi or the like kind of the pure visions of the Bodhisattvas. And that perspective, it is like maybe in the relatively, they can to like a kind of the yet, perceive the purities, but yet enlightenment. And like, for example, see the signs of smokings, they have direct experience, directly, definitively, there is the fire. This is the obvious, like this. They see the signs of the water birds, they have the non-conceptual, no doubt, they can to see, they can to have imagine of the water, and like this in the. And also next verse goes like this. Without this categorize of the valid and invalid cognitions, and a clean separation between the diluted and false and the undiluted true would be impossible. That is very easy. And the tenets of the philosophy could not be put forward. Then there is no philosophies. And also if you have got this kind of the categorization of the invalid cognition or the valid cognitions, and also here is maybe it's like now we're talking about the true valid cognitions. Cognition is like the two more we can to say the mind, of course, like a kind of the conceptual mind is valid the cognitions, you can to say is valid cognitions to see the direct valid in the relative perceptions, and then it's like to see the direct perceptions, to see the valid cognizers, and then it's like you can to like kind of the possible, there is like what is the really we need to pursue, what is correct, what is incorrect, we can to see. And then there are the to start the tenets of the philosophies, and then the philosophy systems is you can to create through that, and also the invalid cognitions, and they're like basically on this direct valid cognition of the in the relative truth, and then it's like through that the like impute of the invalid cognitions to see the really direct, like to have the notion of the emptiness, impermanent, true natural realities, and this kind of like is like a kind of the only the through the mentally, only the to have some knowledge through the signal of the and the relatively, and that perspective, and then we can do through this through the indirect valid cognitions, and that is like we have the like indirect things we can to have the tenets of the philosophies, and or in the future you do like this, in the future you can to result like this, consequences like this, then you can to create your system, create the philosophies. But if you create the philosophies, you create to say, if you beat these computers, then the consequence is your computers become more hard, more like kind of strong. You know? That philosophy doesn't work, you know. If you beat these computers, surely it's broken. But if you say, if you beat these one computers, do not to care, and you it's like this, you know, or in the future, surely your computer doesn't work. That is the I have experienced. If some bit or the don't to care is damaged, this many kind of I have experience, I will tell you. Presently your computer is beautiful, hard, it works very well. If you beat the next step, it doesn't work. Next step, your computer works. That is my telling to you the future, my omniscient. I am like kind of the understand. You have really directed to this notion. You close your mind, how to be there. But I can to tell, I can to have proof, I can to have surely, because I have this knowledge. If break,